Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brain. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides support resources to people who are navigating STI stigma. So a lot of our podcast episodes, we interview people who are living with HSV, the herpes simplex virus, and we have guests on who talk about their experiences with HPV, HIV, and who've had the treatable, well, any STI is treatable, but who's also had the curable STIs, chlamydia, syphilis, gonorrhea, as a way of giving people the resources and education tools that they need in order to navigate any stigma that comes with that. On today's podcast, I am interviewing Peyton, who is 27 years old. She is a female. Pronouns are she, her, which I'm glad that was next on this list because I would have absolutely mispronounced you. You are heterosexual and you consider yourself to be sex positive as well as involved in the kink and BDSM community. And the STIs that you have experience with are HSV2, and then you've tested positive for chlamydia as well as trichomoniasis. Trich. I just call it trich. We just go leave it at that. Yeah. And you described your experiences with chlamydia and trich as being upset and having felt shame, but since they were both curable, you quickly got over those. And that HSV2 was a different story, and it took a lot of time to unlearn the stigma as well as learn how to love yourself again, and that it was a hard hitter for sure. I asked you if your provider provided you with the resources that you needed in order to discuss your diagnosis to your most recent partner, and did you say no? I have another response here that's lengthier, and I think that
I said no.
All right.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. And then since having tested positive for chlamydia and trich, you then were diagnosed with HSV. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And last question I have is, oh wait, it's not a question. Last thing that I'm sharing from the survey here is that you wish that you had more valuable information in school and sex education pre-diagnosis and unlearn stigma at a younger age. Also, after receiving your herpes diagnosis, you wish that they would have given you mental health resources or told you about support groups like my page. I didn't add that in there. This is what she wrote, all right? And then we'll talk about this in more detail, but just about how testing positive may have reshaped your ability to speak. Hold on, wait a minute. That's not the question. This thing refreshed on me. The way that you engage in sexual relationships has also changed. So I just went over the survey that I'm having guests to fill in before these podcast episodes as a way of framing the conversation and giving an idea of what people's experiences are. So can you talk me through, I guess, the experience of being diagnosed with chlamydia and trich? Was this simultaneous or were these two separate occurrences?
They were separate occurrences. So when I got chlamydia, I was with a boyfriend at the time, and I remember telling him, I was like, I got these test results or whatever, and he was the second partner I'd ever had in my life, and I had gotten tested after my first partner, so, I knew that I wasn't positive for anything, and I think it's funny, he blamed it on me, he was just like, it was me, you had this kind of thing. But yeah, so I was just like, okay, whatever. But I was also young, and so I was just like, okay.
How old were you?
I was probably 19 at that point. So I was still, a teenager, young and in a shitty relationship with a shitty older boy. That was just, not good at all. Hindsight 2020. But I got it. That was my first experience having an STI. I felt dirty. But I knew it was curable. So I was like, okay. And then this is never going to happen again. This is whatever. It was just a mishap. And then he blamed it on me, and I was like, it was one of your dirty exes, just like toxic back and forth, but got over it, took my 7 days of pills, antibiotics, and was done with that. The trich diagnosis, that actually came with my herpes diagnosis, like later in life. So, and they started with that one when they told me about it. They were like, "Oh, you have trich, and then also, you have HSV too." I was like, "Oh."
Man, okay. Touching on the chlamydia, you were 19 years old. After you disclosed that you had chlamydia to your then partner and you had all this back and forth, like, what happened after that? Did you continue the relationship?
Unfortunately, I did. Yeah, I was with him for a few years. Toxic, yeah. But eventually we got out of that. But yeah, I did continue the relationship.
Okay. What was the relationship like? Can you give me any insight to, I guess, like, how you met? You mentioned that he's older. If you were 19, he was older.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I played soccer, and my high school was really small, so I had to travel to a neighboring school to play soccer with their team, so there was enough girls. And he was on the boys soccer team, and I was on the girls soccer team. And I just thought he was cute, and eventually we started talking. And we started dating not long after. But it was definitely a very, very toxic relationship. Not to trauma dump, but he was absolutely insane. A lot of people say that about their exes, but I eventually, after about a year, I wasn't allowed to leave the house without him. I was under, we can get into that. It's intense stuff. I was basically on lockdown. He made me unfollow every male on my social media. Yeah, he was super insecure. Yeah. And it got to the point that I was scared to leave him, so I stayed with him for a really long time because I was scared. But eventually I told my boss, because I worked at Victoria's Secret at the time, and she I think caught hints of this isn't a healthy relationship. And I told her that I was scared, but I wanted to leave him, and then she offered for me to stay with her. So then I eventually left him and got out of that situation. So
yeah, so she initiated the conversation about, hey, this relationship isn't healthy, and that made you feel safe sharing, well, yeah, it's not, and I want to leave.
I think I actually had come in to work one day crying because we had just had a really bad fight, and then she noticed that. She just sat me down in the office, and she was just like, hey, do you want to talk? And then floodgates came out, and then I just kind of spilled everything, because he had separated, typical abuse behavior. He had separated me from my family. I didn't talk to my family for 2 years, separated me from all of my loved ones. So that I was isolated, and he became the only person I could actually be talked to. But yeah, so basically she asked me how I was doing, and I couldn't keep up this facade anymore. It was killing me internally. So I told her that, and I was like, I want to leave, and she was like, I'll be there for you, whatever you need. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever, let's do this, because I'm done.
Have you had any relationships prior to that one?
Yeah, he was my second boyfriend. So my first boyfriend was high school love. We were together for 2 years when we were in high school. And then he was my next one after that. So I was just I was young, naive, looking to defy my parents as teenage daughters do, and he caught me at the right moment to kind of be able to mold my mind, and basically I felt like I was brainwashed, just stuck in that cycle.
Yeah. Did you find yourself in another relationship like that? I guess the next relationship after you made it out of that one, what was the process between you leaving him and then finding your next partner?
I think I was single for not long enough, probably a few months, and then I found someone else, you know, and then we'd always argue or whatever, and he'd be like, you just don't know what a healthy relationship is like. And of course I was like, no, but it was true. It was true. I was so messed up mentally from that one. I definitely should have given myself more time. Because yeah, obviously that relationship didn't work out. We were probably together a year before it was like, no, this isn't going to work.
Okay. And there weren't any instances of abuse or STIs here. This was actually someone who was healthy, communicative, and you just like weren't ready for that, would you say?
I wouldn't say he had his own set of issues, but he wasn't physically abusive or anything like that. He was more like immature, I'd say, and that's like kind of what ended it, and jealousy issues and things like that from the both of us. For me, going from a relationship where I wasn't allowed to talk to the opposite sex at all, you know, and thinking that that was like somehow normal, and like that's how that people should act, and that you're not allowed to be friends with people of the opposite sex, which now as a 27-year-old looking back, I'm like, obviously, like, you're supposed to have relationships with other people, like otherwise you become him, you know. So like, yeah, so I was just like fighting that, like, well, you can, yeah, like, you're talking to these other girls, and then, you know, like, and just getting upset. Like, I had caught, you know, just young and dumb, like, I caught him watching porn a few times, and I was still at the age where I was like, no, like, that's, you hate me, and you know, you're not attracted to me.
That's so funny because even when I was in college, like, I'd watch porn, and my ex would be like, why are you watching porn? Like, use me. Like, you don't need porn, you have me. And like recognizing that how people have treated and talked to us in relationships is sometimes how we move forward and treat and talk to other people. So is that what did you like have him or like tell him, hey, you can't talk to other girls? Like, was that something that you did, or are you saying that that's what he did?
In the abusive relationship, like
in the second relationship. So the first relationship, you weren't allowed to talk to other guys. So I'm asking if you held
the one
on,
after that.
Yeah, if after that relationship, did you carry that into this next relationship? Like, well, if you really like me, then you won't talk to other girls, and I won't talk to other guys.
A little bit, but I think more so in that one, it was the porn thing. Like, I think he seriously had a porn addiction, and I caught him multiple times, you know? And then it's always just like, big titty this and big titty that, and I'm like, no, I'm small titty this, small titty that. So it's kind of just like my own insecurities and jealousy issues, you know? But also, like, knowing that porn is okay now, but he for sure had a problem, like, you know, like, to the point that it would, like, affect us in the bedroom, getting intimate. Like, I'd come home and he'd be like, oh, yeah, I can't get hard because I beat off 11 times. Like, sir, like, maybe you need to address that.
And there's nothing wrong with beating off 11 times. However, if you're beating off 11 times instead of looking for a job or going to work, or if it's hindering other like responsibilities, and then you got a problem. Because
exactly,
I ain't gonna say I ain't been there before, but like I had days where I just didn't have anything to do, so it was like, all right, I'm finna beat my meat, and that was just it. So I guess now let's talk about the interaction with your doctor. When you got the chlamydia.
That was so many years ago. All I remember is like getting a phone call, and short and sweet, you know, like, hey, you tested positive for this, here's the antibiotic, go pick it up at Walgreens, you know. So that's basically what it was. And then I went and picked it up, and really simple.
Yeah. So what made you get tested? Did you have symptoms?
Yeah, I did. I hate to say it, but I had stank pussy, some itching. I was like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
So I went and got checked out, and yeah, sure enough, something wasn't right.
Okay. And then for your next, experience, which was more recent, trich and HSV, walk me through that. Like, what were you having symptoms, and then how did you interact with the doctor?
So that one was crazy because I had went and it's so crazy looking back at your younger self. And I went to this guy's house, and it was just like a one night stand kind of thing. And then the next day, I started getting sick. Had a headache and just felt shitty, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm starting to get sick. And about a few days had gone by, and I had to call out for work because my headache was so bad. I felt like I had the flu. I was just so sick, and I was like, oh, I'm just sick. So I went to the doctor. They ended up giving me stuff for the flu, or treating it as if it was that. And then a whole nother week goes by, so it's been a week and a half at this point, and I've taken my medicine, and I'm still fucking sick, and I'm like, oh, what is going on? And then I noticed it started to hurt when I peed, and I remember laying in my bed. It was a rough period of my life. I'd moved back in with my parents. I was working a shitty job, retail job, in the basement of my parents' house, at, what was I, 22 or something? Yeah, 22 years old. And I remember, okay, it's been a week and a half, let me Google these symptoms. And then I remember the first thing that popped up was genital herpes. And I was like, whoa. And I, literally broke down.
I was thinking to myself, Googled, I was like, oh, Trich has flu symptoms too? I completely forgot that you were diagnosed with herpes.
It was at the same time. I had no idea about the trich until the doctor had called me. But yeah, I remember just that Google result popped up at 1 a.m, and I just remember sobbing all night. And then the next day, I went to Planned Parenthood, I think, and got tested a full pap and everything. And then they said that they were yeah, right on the very end, I see a tiny little lesion that could be, something. And then sure enough, yeah, I got a call a few days later, and it was hey, you're positive for trichomoniasis and also HSV too. And then I just remember crying, and she was just it's okay, it's common. The healthcare response, but that was about it. She's like,
everybody has herpes, not me though.
Yeah. Good luck with that one.
And so, did you ask for any information? Did you want any information? Did you get offered any information about either of those STIs? How to not get them again, or how to manage them? Any communication for how to disclose to your partners, or your most recent partner that you might have gotten it from?
No, I definitely did not. It was basically just, we filled a prescription for you, and go pick that up. And then I was super upset on the phone, and she just, a few times she was just it's going to be okay, but nothing hey, here's something you could go look at, or, get more information, blah, blah, blah. It was never like that. I kind of just had to do that on my own. A lot of forums, a lot of people go through this, so just Googling, how do I deal with this? Because the emotional toll was just insane, and the stigma, before that, the stigma you learn growing up. I remember, it's funny, I remember, someone telling me, it's so fucked up. I remember someone telling me they had herpes, and then I remember going to my boyfriend and being oh my God, they have herpes. And then 2 years later, oh, bitch, you fucking have herpes. Let's see who's laughing now. You're crying. So, just unlearning all of that and dealing with the emotional toll and feeling I'll never find love again, and I'll never find somebody who's going to want me, and, just all of the feelings that you feel, even though it's not true and it's not facts, and you know that now. It took me years to deal with the trauma that ensued after that diagnosis, and it's crazy, you know?
Yeah. So you ended up getting a lot of the information that helped you on your own. What were some of the resources that you felt like helped you along the way?
Like I said, I did a lot of Googling and like reading articles, but honestly, like those don't make you feel much better because it's just like, yeah, herpes is common, but like the type I have, HSV2, is only 11%. So like if I had the other one, like maybe it would be better, you know, in some way in your mind, you know, like, and just like dealing with, yeah, like I remember Googling a lot, like how to disclose, because that was my biggest thing. Like, obviously I still want to date and I still want to find a partner, but like how do I fucking do that? Because that's such a feat. So I remember just like a lot of Googling, and then I started realizing that there were Instagram accounts like with advice and stuff like that. So that helped. I think the biggest thing for me too was like when I finally felt confident in myself to tell people I was close to, like in having people say me too. And I think that was the most validating for me, is when I like was talking about it. So it would be like, hey, like I have it too. Like literally, like it's fine. Like, you know, it sucks right now. I've been through exactly what you've been through. But I think, yeah, like learning like how common it actually is, because like you hear it, oh, it's common, it's common, it's common. But until like you open and be vulnerable enough to like share that, then other people will share that back, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Did you disclose to your partner you said that you had sex with, and then that was when you felt sick, and then you had trich, and then HSV2? Did you talk to him about your diagnosis?
I was so mortified and mad, and it was just like a one night stand type thing. I did not talk to him about it. I was just like, in my mind, he was the enemy and I was the victim, you know, and you gave me this thing, like how could you not know? Which, you know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but at the end of the day, like throwing blame or whatever, I probably should have had a conversation with him, but I think it was just so much for me at the time that I was just like, no, like I'm not gonna do that, you know, I'm embarrassed and I don't want to be the fucking little thought that, you know, like this one night stand or whatever, you know. It was and it was crazy to me because he was like this like big basketball player, so I'm like, how many other girls are you having sex with that, you know, you're doing the same thing to them kind of thing. Just that's kind of the vibe he gave off, so I was just like, I didn't confront him about it. Hindsight, I should have, but I did not. I was not in a mental place to do that, and not ready to hear someone else's criticism. Also, like going through my past experience of like telling my boyfriend that I had chlamydia and him blaming it on me, I kind of like was like, I don't want to tell this guy I have this, you know, because then he's gonna blame it on me, and this is a lot more serious than, you know, chlamydia. Like this is serious, you know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that too. I would like to know, what was your pre-sex conversation with this person? It was a one-night stand. Well, okay, you're laughing. Go ahead.
Oh, God. He had a girl FaceTime him, and I was like, who's that? He's like, flips his phone. Nobody. Come here. Like, that was it. That we didn't talk about. We had no, hey, like, have you been tested recently? None of that. It was super just, let's get in there, you know? It was not healthy at all.
Yeah.
No conversation really was had.
Okay. And I have to ask this. I didn't want to ask this, but, like, did you wear a condom?
I did not, no.
See, that's why I want to ask. It's like implied, but I didn't want. I don't want you to feel like any kind of.
Unfortunately, I thought I was untouchable, you know, like, and I think that goes back to me saying, like, I wish, like, our sex education would have taught us better, because the stigma literally makes you think only dirty people get this, you know, when all actuality is, like, everyone gets, you know what I mean? Like, if you're fucking without a condom, or, like, even if you are fucking with a condom, like, you're having sex, like, you're, like, things can happen, you know? So I was just like, I felt like I was untouched. Oh, that can't happen to me. Oh, like, I'm a clean person. Like, oh, I'm, you know, whatever. Like, even though, like, my sex practices were far from safe, and I was, you know, like, going to the bars and having sex with dudes, you know what I mean? Like, it was not safe at all, but somehow the stigma made me feel like I was safe.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't.
Yeah, and thank you again. Like, thank you for this whole conversation, first off. Do you feel like you'd have had completely different experiences if you knew how to disclose that you did test positive for an STI? Like, if your healthcare provider was like, hey, you know, here's how you want to inform your most recent partner, or if they even ask, do you want to inform your most recent partner?
Oh, for sure. I think that having that type of resource, I think anybody who gets diagnosed with an STI, specifically ones that aren't curable, just the treatable ones, I think it's so important to be, like, recommended to a therapist or some sort of, like, mental health professional that, like, specializes in that, because they're just, like, we all have our different experiences surrounding it, but at the end, they're all the same. We're all going through the same, like, feelings. So if there was somebody that could, like, better help us navigate those thoughts and feelings that we're having, I think that would have been so helpful, because, you know, I made a lot of mistakes along the way of, like, my healing, and, you know, there was a partner that I didn't disclose to because I was scared, you know, and that's fucked up, and, you know, that was fucked up of me. But I feel like if I was better equipped with the resources, I would have handled things way different. I would have handled all of my sexual experiences way different.
Yeah. And I even think, like, to the communication pieces, like, you ended up in an abusive relationship for your first one. Like, he isolated you. You were emotionally, mentally, like, controlled. You were being controlled and manipulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in our sex education, there are so many components of sex that don't have anything to do with intercourse that need to be discussed, such as boundaries, consent, being able to identify abuse, knowing what to do about it. If you are not able to identify healthy behaviors, being able to seek out support in ways that you can, okay, hey, I think that this might be an abusive relationship. Here's what's going on. And then be sort of encouraged to seek out a support system. And also, if you test positive for an STI, understanding, like, that there are resources out there that you can talk to someone close to you so that they can offer you the support that's necessary for you as who you were before your STI diagnosis to be validated, and that nothing's changed about you, because we just don't know how to disclose. And there's a very what you're speaking to is the importance of being able to disclose your status and what you're going through. Like, you didn't have to tell your family, friends, hey, I got this STI, but being able to tell them, hey, I'm feeling these emotions and it's because of something that happened. Even that, like, if you have the know-how to be able to do that much, then you can get so much more support than you would get from just isolating yourself and going online in forums and finding other people who are like, oh my God, I have herpes, it's the worst thing that ever happened to me, and going down there.
And just, like, the negative cycle, for sure, of just being like, my life is over, and, you know, just all of this. I 1,000% agree, and especially, like, you saying the, like, relationships and learning abuse, like, earlier. Oh, absolutely. Because, like, you know, obviously my parents were in my ear being like, this guy isn't good, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to listen to your parents. But, like, say you're sitting down and you're learning these things, like, as a part of, you know, something greater. It's like, oh, like, okay, like, maybe this is something I need to, like, you know, listen to rather than my parents and wanting to defy them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything you said, I absolutely agree with. I think that would set so many people off on a better path. And then when they do get a diagnosis like this, that they're not going to crumble so fucking hard because they're going to have the tools and the knowledge to better fucking handle their emotions. Because yeah, it's a fucking emotional like bomb that goes off. Like, you just think so many things and you feel so many things and you're not even knowing what you're feeling. But if you can have somebody with better experience to say, okay, this is what it is and this is how you can better handle it, like, then you have the tools to do better.
Yes. Shifting gears a little bit, you mentioned that, I think on your survey, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that the way that you engage in relationships now has changed, not since your chlamydia diagnosis, but since your trich and HSV diagnosis specifically. Can you speak to that for me a little bit?
Yeah, well, I had told you that first relationship I was in after my diagnosis, obviously I messed up, made a mistake. I did not disclose. I just, I kind of kept that private. I was taking my valacyclovir and I couldn't emotionally do it. And obviously I feel huge regret about that. But after that, like, I ended that and I was like, I could never do that again. That did not feel good, and like, I would never want someone to unknowingly be going through something that I've struggled so hard with. So yeah, then moving forward, I was like, I absolutely have to disclose. So then I started Googling ways to disclose, and then there's a bunch of Instagram pages on like things you can say or like little tips and tricks, like you have them on your page too, of like how to word it. And then I usually do it by text, just because like I felt better, but like I knew 100% going forward I needed to have that conversation, and it was helpful to learn like from your page to start with asking them if they had been tested and making it a two-way conversation rather than, hey, this is what I have, like take with a, like making it, hey, like, and then gauging their response on that, like, hey, have you been tested? Oh, no, I'm clean. Oh, well, like, let's not say clean, I'm not dirty, like all of the tips and tricks. But yeah, moving forward, it definitely helped me too, like slowing down and actually getting to know a fucking person. I think my herpes diagnosis is what I needed. Like, I was kind of off the deep end, like having sex with random people. I think it's what I needed to like slow down and be like, hey, you're not fucking unstoppable, and you're not going to cultivate like the relationship you truly want deep down. You're not going to be able to cultivate that just by like thinking you're going to have sex with these people and they're going to love you. Like, that's not how it works. Like, get to know this person, get to know you can trust this person enough to be vulnerable with them to tell you or to tell them about your diagnosis.
Yeah, thank you. This vulnerability piece, while it's something that, yeah, we're not taught how to be vulnerable, if you will. However, we are like kind of taught not to be, if you will. And I'm trying to figure out, because there's something here that's like I feel like it's like stuck right here for me to say, that kind of ties a lot of what you're saying together, not just the disclosure piece, but being able to have a challenging conversation, because we also don't want to, quote, kill a mood, right? And we also, like, there's a statistic that I saw that 70-something% of healthcare providers don't talk to their patient about sex, and 70-something% of patients don't talk to their healthcare providers about sex. So that is a lot of people who, in the setting where they should be able to talk about sex and their sexual health, that are just not having the conversation. And speaking to your experience with the healthcare providers, just being very matter of fact, yeah, there's a space for that for sure. Hey, you have this, here's a treatment for it. All right, but like, these healthcare providers are the initial touch point of not just STD prevention, but also stigma. Like, your diagnosis is probably the first time that you have actually been in stigma. You may have, like, unknowingly perpetuated it. Oh, you know, people with herpes look like this. People who get STIs do these things. I'm not that person. I don't have sex with random people just because. I have sex with random people because I want them to like me and it's going to lead to a relationship. Like, these kinds of things that we think or how that influence our behavior, we're not taught how to really reflect. We're not taught to reflect on these things and have an understanding of where this is coming from. So I say that because I also don't want anyone listening to be like, oh my God, like, I feel so bad because I have random sex with people. Like, I want for you to take away from this, hey, have sex with random people and strangers, but do so with the understanding of you should have like this communication piece, like have this conversation. So my next question to you is, has having these bits and pieces of how to disclose your status influenced how sex is for you? Like, is it more pleasurable? Are you having more of it? Are you having less of it? Is the quality better? Is the quantity better? Like, talk to me about how your sex life has changed.
Yeah, I would say that, like, after my initial diagnosis, I probably took, like, a year off of, like, dating or, like, sex in general, just because I wasn't prepared for it. And now, I would say my sex life has definitely improved because I'm having sex with people I actually trust. So, like, I'm able to open myself even on that physical level a lot more, knowing that that person accepts me for who I am. Now I can have a genuine, like, connection with this person. Like, the mental and physical are so tied together that I think it's made my experiences so much better. I would say that, I mean, I'm not having one night stands, but I would say that I would say my sex life has improved. I'm having just as much sex as I did, but with a trustable partner rather than multiple partners. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with having sex with multiple partners or random strangers or whatever. Do what you do. I just think there's so much shame, like, built into, like, sexuality in general, and that's probably why people, like, don't feel comfortable having those conversations, because they're scared of the judgment, because so many people judge other people based on, like, what they're doing. Like, it's my fucking body. I don't care. Like, as long as you feel comfortable with what you're doing, and having that conversation and learning to have those conversations. But I would say that my sex life has improved, and I'm having better sex because of it, for sure. And I'm more confident in myself, being able to be my authentic self, and share this part of me that is a part of me and will be forever.
Yeah. Thank you for that. With that being said, transitioning into the kink and sex positivity, you can share as much as you feel comfortable, but is the way that you engage with kink at all influenced by your experiences with your STI diagnosis? Like, did you get into it because it was like, oh, I can't have sex, so I'm going to do kinky things that don't necessarily involve sex? Or was there another way for you to have gotten into that?
I would say, like, kind of related, but not necessarily. I think me just, like, being open and honest with my diagnosis and, like, finding partners that are sex positive, I think, and then introducing me into, like, this different side of life. I've noticed that people are more, like, the people that have gone through more and, like, are more into this kink and BDSM understand sex more. I feel like they've had those conversations before, or I don't know what it is, but it just seems like that community knows how to better handle, like, adult sexual conversations. You know, they can, I don't know why that connection is, but it's fucking there. Like, they just, like, I feel like they're more accepting and they understand, and they're not just, like, going off the sexual social norms. I feel like they have a little bit more of an expanded mind. So I feel like, yeah, it has in a way led me to partners that are into that. So yeah.
Yeah, I am so glad you said that because I am currently working with the executive director of Sex Positive World to create like a workshop or something that's introducing people with herpes to the sex positive community so that they can get those resources about like how to have conversations about sex rather than thinking this is about herpes. Like, I need to be able to date someone who has herpes. No, there are so many people who are out there who A, don't care, B, just may not have an understanding, or C, also have it. And so to be brought into environments where, you know, that's an accepting and understood risk, and to be able to explore what your options are and also be able to have more communicative partners so that you have that two-way street communication. You shouldn't feel the moral obligation to disclose your status and have to initiate the conversation about STI testing, sexual health, things of that nature. Like, why is that responsibility solely on the person who has a diagnosis? Why aren't we finding ourselves in spaces where it's not just assumed that everyone has a negative status? Like, you can have someone ask you, all right, hey, you know, I'm wanting to take things further. Like, I get tested this often, you know, I was last tested for these things and I was negative, you know, what are your testing practices? Because someone offering us the opportunity after having initiated it to disclose our status, like that just hits so much different, and it's such a big relief too. And
for sure.
And I'm finding that like a lot of people don't want to even put themselves out there in that position because we immediately jump to, oh, we're going to be rejected, we're going to be shamed, we're going to be slut shamed, we're going to be blamed and accused. So yeah, is there anything you want to add to that?
I would say, yeah, I guess my current partner, most accepting guy I've ever met in my life, and he comes from like a poly background and is in the kink and BDSM community, you know, and he's had orgies and all of this kind of stuff. So it's just like, I think he was better fucking equipped he's had these conversations with multiple people, and like he is in the sex positive community, so like he knows that that's a vital conversation. And I think that's like, it's something it taught me. Like I'm a monogamous person, but like I think everybody should feel the comfortability to have those conversations, because why is there so much shame like surrounding it? And just being our open and authentic selves, and giving people the space to do that. But like what you said, like someone offering that information first and being like, hey, like that is such a huge relief. You know what I mean? Like him coming to me and be like, hey, like I have this many partners right now, but like this is what's going on with me. It's like, oh, so I can be my vulnerable self because you're being your vulnerable self. Like, thank you. That's amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for sure.
A thought that just triggered in that was how it's about sex. It's 100% about sex. A stigma that we place on a person who has a lot of partners and we assume is going to have an STI or has an STI. Like, because you have an STI, you have a lot of partners. But because you have a lot of partners and you're communicative, you don't have a lot of STIs, but you're aware. Like, there is an imbalance of stigma that we place. And I don't even want to say it like stigma needs to be evenly distributed across everything, but there is absolutely more of a stigma that is placed on sexually related things. So like an STI is just a sickness that, you know, an illness or whatever that comes from having sexual contact, right? Not even all the time. So if you remove the sexual component, then you just have an illness that you treat, it goes away, right? And then when we talk about like relationship structures and styles where there are multiple partners, there's this assumption placed on there, because you have a lot of partners, you're gonna get something. You're gonna like the shit just comes out of nowhere. Like if I have 5 partners who regularly get tested, and if someone's feeling off, they don't have sex, then the STI doesn't just manifest out of nowhere, right? And people people aren't ready to receive that. and have that level of understanding, because like you said in your intake form, like we have to do some unlearning. Like we have to unlearn so much more than we've learned throughout the course of our lives.
For sure, absolutely. Because it's like me as a monogamous person, like I'm clean and I only have sex with one person at a time, and this isn't going to happen to me. Well, it did happen to me, and then the guy that's fucking all these girls, like, good for him, but like, and then he's, you know, the one that doesn't have it. So yeah, because it seems like he's just had more of those conversations and been with people that are having those conversations, and you know, he's better equipped to, you know, deal with that life, you know. And I think that's something that everybody, no matter what type of relationship, you know, type you go for, or no matter what, like what type of partner you go for, I think that's absolutely something everybody should have. And I don't know why there's this shame and stigma. I think a lot of it, like the patriarchy, religion, I think plays into it. I just think there's so many things that go into people like not being comfortable with like admitting like their sexual desires and having those open and honest conversations. But I think getting the resources earlier on in life, like when you're a teenager and starting to like develop these sexual feelings and desires, like being better equipped to have those healthy conversations. I think that's really important. And yeah, unlearning the stigma, because yeah, like it doesn't matter how many partners you've had. You can get herpes after having sex with one person, and like unlearning that there is no set type to get this. Like, it could be fucking anybody. Like, the President of the United States could have this. You know, it doesn't matter, like, who you are, what you are. Nobody is safe, you know?
Thank you for that as well. My last question for you is, I want to speak to the fact that you are monogamous and you've had those experiences with an STI, and I kind of want to know like what that means for you. And then now you are monogamous and you're dating someone who is, you said that they have experience with polyamory. Are they still polyamorous?
No, so they were poly, and then we were friends for a while, and then I was like, I don't want to date you because you're poly or whatever. Like, I definitely am just the type that would prefer having one partner. And then eventually he was like, I think I can do this. And I was like, okay, like, let's try it then. So he's no longer like, he's monogamous with me at this point. Okay. Yeah, so he's monogamous now. Sorry, what was the other question?
No, I think that like cuts off me asking any more of that question, because it was going to go into like, you know, how do you feel being monogamous dating someone who's non-monogamous? That was, so we don't have to go there. But having been a monogamous person who has tested positive for an STI on multiple occasions, like the education that we've received essentially says if you have one partner, you prevent yourself from getting an STI, but that wasn't the case for you.
No, definitely not the case for me.
And so we're speaking to, you know, some of the things that you need, and like for people who are in this place of having to not just combat like STI stigma, but also this like, oh my God, like now I'm all these things because my identity as a monogamous person is now interconnected with being a slut or being someone who is unsafe. I'm dirty, disgusting. I have all these partners, but the reality is like I only sleep with one person at a time. So for someone who is navigating that, do you have any guidance for them?
I mean, everybody's going to feel their feelings in a different way, and you're going to like process the blow a little bit differently than other people. But I think, you know, as cliched as it is common. And I think just like learning to like love yourself and pouring into your own cup and realizing like you are not your diagnosis. You're so much more than that. I think getting out of your head and into your body. I think that connection's super important. Getting into the gym was one things that really fucking helped me. I would just say, just like focus on loving yourself and doing things for yourself that are going to bring you love. And then eventually you'll realize like it doesn't matter and you're going to find a person that accepts you. And even if you aren't looking for a person, like just knowing that you can accept yourself, because you are not your diagnosis.
That's it. I think that that's a good point for us to leave off on. And I always speak to our sexuality being really interconnected with our identities. And as we just spoke through that portion there, it makes me think like a person's identity as a monogamous person is now challenged because of sexual health stigma. If you're monogamous and you test positive for an STI, you're like, how could this happen to me? It's important to recognize that you are not exclusively like your value of what you bring to a relationship is not exclusively tied into your ability to merge genitals with someone. It's not tied to the value that you bring in the sense of like offering your sexual beingness to another person. You know, there's so many other aspects of ourselves that we are now challenged with having to identify and reflect on. And like for you, you got into the gym. You recognize that you enjoyed being in the gym and that was really therapeutic for you and helpful for you. So our gym metaphorically could be a number of different things that like make us feel good about ourselves, like whatever our identity validating self-care practices might be. So thank you so much, Peyton, for your time, for sharing your experiences here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope that this is something that helps other folks as they navigate STI stigma themselves. That concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please like, rate, review, share, subscribe to this podcast. To support Something Positive for Positive People, you can donate via Venmo, Cash App, at Courtney Brame, and then on PayPal, it's /SPFPP. SPFPP is the PayPal account name. All right, till next time, stay sex positive.